Okay, so if you're anywhere near business leadership, you've definitely heard the scary numbers about employee turnover costs. I mean, it's not just pocket change.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Estimates put replacing just one employee at, what, 50%? Sometimes even up to 200% of their salary. It's staggering.
And zooming out, you see stats like U.S. businesses losing around $400 billion a year just from people leaving early on.
Exactly. That early tenure attrition. The sources we looked at today highlight a really concerning figure. About 1 in 3 new hires walks out within the first 90 days.
Wow, 1 in 3.
And the kicker, it's often not about the money. The main driver seems to be poor management.
Which sets the stage perfectly for our deep dive today. We're digging into QuotaPro Leadership, QPL, and specifically their Capabilities Deck.
Right.
Our goal really is to understand how QPL is trying to flip the script on retention, moving it from, a backward-looking metric that causes headaches to something proactive, a strategic tool.
Yeah, we want to unpack their core philosophy, this thing they call the North Star Leadership Methodology. And, maybe more importantly, look at the actual tech they use, the diagnostics and AI coaching tools to make that philosophy work on the ground.
They're essentially betting that they can fix that management gap, the one causing all that early turnover.
That seems to be the core bet, yes.
Okay, so let's get into that philosophy. QPL's big idea is transforming leadership itself. Not just a title on an org chart, but something tangible, a behavior you can actually see and measure.
And that's where their North Star methodology comes in. But it's not just the methodology in a vacuum. It's backed by tailored training, AI coaching, and SaaS tools to kind of enforce it.
So this North Star, what is it exactly? Is it just a catchy phrase?
Well, according to their materials, no. They're quite insistent it's not just a slogan. It's meant to be a strategic compass, right? But more than that, it needs to be operationalized, meaning it has to be a living metric, a standard for behavior, something that genuinely anchors the company culture and drives actual decisions day to day.
Right. Okay. So if the ultimate goal, the North Star, is better retention, how do you measure that specifically? You can't just measure retention as a behavior.
Exactly. So the philosophy implies you measure the behaviors that are known to lead to retention.
Ah, okay. Like what?
Well, for instance, defining clear standards for managers. Maybe you track not just their team's output, but also their team's 90-day retention rate. Or maybe how often they conduct and document meaningful coaching sessions.
So turning the abstract goal into concrete, trackable actions. KPIs, basically.
Precisely, making the intangible tangible.
And you can see that kind of rigor reflected in their core values, too. They talk a lot about client-centric impact.
Which means, their solutions have to show measurable results. They need to directly address and mitigate those attrition risks for the client. No fluff.
Which makes sense, because if you're fighting attrition, generic stuff probably won't cut it.
Right. Which leads to their other key value, tailored excellence. They stress how meticulous they are in designing solutions. Everything has to be precise, relevant, and fit the client's specific culture and goals.
Because otherwise it's just wasted training budget. Right?
Exactly. Generic leadership training is often a poor investment when you have a specific problem like high early turnover.
Okay, so the methodology provides the why and the what. Let's shift to the how. How do they actually apply this in practice? Their scope seems pretty broad: tech, retail, healthcare.
Yeah, they work across industries. And they offer a range of things from, keynote speeches to deep executive coaching.
But let's focus on where the rubber meets the road, especially for new hires. The frontline managers, what's the training like for them?
For managers, they lean heavily on something called immersive simulation-based learning.
Okay, sounds intense. What does that involve?
It's definitely not death by PowerPoint. We're talking scenario-based learning, role-playing, exercises designed to mimic the real, often high-pressure situations managers face.
That does sound effective, but also really resource-intensive. How do they scale that kind of hands-on training for, say, a big company with thousands of managers?
That's a very fair question. I think part of the answer lies in the structure. They focus the training tightly on the employee life cycle. So everything from getting recruitment right to hiring well, all the way through to proactive retention strategies.
So it's targeted.
Yes. And the deliverables are key. Managers don't just leave with ideas. They get practical tools, playbooks, checklists, specific coaching frameworks, essentially a toolkit for retention they can use immediately.
Actionable items, not just abstract concepts.
Okay.
Now, what about the folks higher up? Executives. The focus must shift there.
It does. For executive development, it's less about specific daily tasks and more about broader strategic capabilities.
Right. I saw QPL highlights a few priority topics for execs, and they seem particular about how those topics are taught, the modality.
Definitely. For example, if they're teaching strategic thinking and visioning, it's not just a lecture. They use techniques like scenario planning and something they call future-back visioning.
Hold on, future back visioning. Can you unpack that? Sounds a bit like jargon.
Fair enough. It basically means you start by defining the ideal future state. Let's say 5 years from now, the company has totally cracked its attrition problem. Then, the leadership team works backwards from that future success.
Okay.
They identify the critical steps, decisions, and even behavioral changes they need to start making today to make that future happen. It forces a kind of present-day accountability for the long-term vision.
I see. That makes sense. Connects today's actions to the future goal. What about softer skills, like emotional intelligence?
For things like emotional intelligence and self-awareness, they rely a lot on tools like 360-degree feedback combined with structured reflection, getting that external perspective.
And for talent management and retention itself.
There, they push for deep dives. Root cause analysis of why people are leaving, and importantly, conducting retention interviews, not just exit interviews. Understanding why people stay is just as critical.
So it's a pretty comprehensive approach, and I understand they structure this longer-term development through an academy?
That's right. The North Star Leadership Academy. It offers certification tracks built around their own retention architecture framework. The idea is to really embed this retention focus into a leader's career path.
And these certification levels, they seem designed to tie the learning directly to actual results, right? Can you walk us through the 3 levels, especially that top one?
Sure. It starts with the CRAM, that's the Certified Retention Aware Manager. It's the baseline, ensuring managers understand the fundamentals, the risk factors for attrition.
Okay, entry level.
Then comes the CRL, the Certified Retention Leader. This requires more application case studies, complex simulations. You have to show you can apply the concepts.
Right.
But the one that really shows their focus on outcomes is the MRL, the Master Retention Leader.
And that's more than just passing a test, I gather.
Oh, definitely. To get the MRL designation, a leader has to complete a capstone project. And this project involves demonstrating measurable improvements in retention within their own team or area.
Measurable improvements, like actual numbers.
Yes. Tracked over 6 or even 12 months. So you don't just get the certificate, you have to prove you've actually moved the needle on retention. That's where the philosophy really hits the P&L.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because QPL isn't just relying on training workshops and frameworks. They're using technology quite heavily to, well, make it all stick.
Absolutely. The tech stack is central to their whole approach.
Let's dive into that. The QPL Suite brand architecture has, what, 3 main tech tools?
That's right. 3 core components we should look at. First up is the North Star Attrition Index.
The index, what's its job?
This is basically the measurement baseline. Their tagline for it is, measure what matters, retain what counts. It crunches the numbers on turnover costs, both the obvious direct costs like recruitment fees, and the harder to pin down indirect costs.
Like lost productivity, knowledge drain, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And a critical piece of the index is what they call attrition trigger mapping.
Trigger mapping.
Yeah, it uses data, behavioral, cultural, operational data to figure out the specific root causes of turnover within that particular client's organization. Because, why people quit a tech startup is likely very different from why they leave a big manufacturing plant.
So it customizes the diagnosis. Makes sense.
It does. Oh. And that diagnostic data feeds directly into the second tool, which is more predictive, the North Star retention signal.
Ah, the predictive piece, an early warning system.
Precisely. It's specifically designed to flag new, higher flight risk before they even think about leaving.
Okay. That sounds like a potential game changer. How does it actually work? Is it scanning emails or something?
It's less about surveillance and more about analyzing patterns. It looks at a mix of data points, things like performance trends, how quickly someone completes onboarding training, the frequency of manager check-ins, maybe engagement survey pulses.
And if those data points start looking like patterns seen in people who left previously?
Bingo. If a new hire's data profile starts to match known high-risk profiles, it triggers a retention signal alert. And crucially, this alert goes straight to their manager.
So instead of finding out why someone left in an exit interview, months too late,
the manager gets a heads up, a chance to intervene. And it's not just a vague warning. The tool provides actionable recommendations.
Like what?
Things like increase frequency of one-on-one coaching sessions, or ensure milestone X in the onboarding plan is completed and discussed, or maybe connect this individual with mentor Y. It tries to guide the manager toward a specific, helpful action.